you so much for being on this.
Absolutely.
I think not only are you the first Iraqi person that we've had on this podcast, I mean, you're Iraqi Canadian, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think you might be the first Iraqi person that I've like actually had a chance to sit down and talk with.
Really?
Yeah, whether that's like a dinner party or at school or anywhere.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Don't fuck it up for all the other Iraqis. I'm kidding. Yeah, I'm sure it'll be great. You look great. Thank you so much for coming here.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So when did you move to Canada? Were you born in Canada?
Okay. So I moved to Canada in 1997.
Okay. So we're about the same. I went in 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And actually, I come from this super minority religion.
Sure.
In Iraq.
Okay.
It's called Mandaean, Mandaean. It's like
Mandaean, yeah.
An agnostic.
Huh.
Agnostic or
yeah.
not
agnostic means that you don't believe in a God at all.
Not agnostic. I messed it up.
That's okay.
Okay, so I am agnostic myself,
okay.
but like the religion is not agnostic because otherwise it wouldn't be a religion, right? They don't believe in. They're not Muslim. They're not Christian. They're not Jewish. It's like their own thing. They baptize, they follow like John the Baptist, Noah, Adam, like all those people. It's like super ancient, like religion. A lot of the history has been like lost.
Sure.
They try to, capture some of the history here and there. We have our own book, religious book.
What is it called?
It's called Kinzarabba is the name of the book.
Okay.
The religious book.
Sorry, the religious called Mandaean? Mandaean.
Or Sabia.
Okay.
Which that's what we're known as in Iraq. So it's like a super minority religion. Maybe it's like less than 60,000 now in the world.
Okay. So it's an endangered species.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't help that I'm like agnostic.
No, that's okay.
Yeah. So I'm Iraqi and then I have this other identity as a Mandaean. So it's like a minority within a minority. So when I grew up in Canada and Toronto, I felt like very much of a minority. Like at first, like it took a while to adjust to Canadian life, coming from where I came from. Yeah,
adjusting to Canadian life, especially coming from where you came from, your background, I'm sure must have been very difficult. But I'm still trying to understand this religion thing. So
I'm actually not a good person to ask about this religion because
we can Google later. Yeah.
It's funny because we went to these camps like when we were growing up to like befriend like people from our faith or whatever, right? Yeah. You would think they would like teach us, but it wasn't even like that. It was just like, hey,
awesome.
this could be your potential husband, like, or something. It was like more of a matching thing or just like getting together and having fun.
Right. Yeah.
As opposed to like learning the history.
Right.
And they have their own language. It's called Mandaic.
Okay. Do you speak any?
No. I know some prayers, but it's like I don't even know what they mean actually.
And is this religion only based out of Iraq or?
It's Iraq-Iran region. Okay. Like that area. There's some Persians who have this religion as well. So
there's some Persians who
and
have
there's
this.
A lot of them in Australia as well. So now they're living like a lot of. Like, there's a huge exodus after the Iraq war, 2003, right?
Right.
So I don't think anybody's left. Like, you maybe only few, right? So now it's like Australia has the most, and then maybe like North America.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. But you said that they follow some biblical, some Christian basis, right? So would it be like an off branch?
But it predates that. It predates even according to what they've told me. It predates like Judaism even. Like there's so much history. So much history has been lost, unfortunately, because it's like it has been like a persecuted minority. When you're a minority, you're very vulnerable to persecution from like the majority,
especially back in the days.
But it's amazing like that even some of them have survived,
right?
All those like centuries of persecution, right?
Yeah, centuries of persecution. Dude, that sounds fucking terrible. But the human spirit is like very strong, especially I think during persecuted times.
Especially as an Iraqi,
sure,
experiencing so many major wars, like my country's been the target of war for such a long time from like the superpower, from the United States.
Right.
So I think all of that has like shaped my perception of the world, like my place in the world, how I see the world,
Yeah. But, and yet, despite being, having a shape that way, you still seem like a very positive and upbeat person, which I think is really cool. And now you're in China.
It's amazing. I made a conscious decision, just prior to coming to Shanghai, like moving here, that I'm completely gonna transform like who I was up to that point. And now I'm like this like person that vibrates like joy and positivity and optimism.
Yeah.
And it wasn't always the case, I was like super into like politics and like watching the news and everything, and being like, I got really depressed during like COVID when we had the lockdown. I was in Shenzhen. I was living there at the time. And so I was locked down for like 4 months, and I couldn't go home and see my family and stuff. So I got into a deep depression, and then ended up, long story short, my hair got tangled up. I had like long curly hair because I never left my bed. I was always like sleeping. I didn't care, right? I didn't care, right?
Sure, COVID, yeah.
So then I cut off my hair. Like I had to like cut it all off, and it was like super short, like even shorter than now. But that precipitated like a series of changes in me. After I cut my hair, I was like, I'm gonna be a different person with this new look. It's gonna be a different me.
Yeah. And
then I started like, thinking about what kind of person I want to be, what kind of life I want to have,
Yeah. I think it's incredibly important to think about what type of life you want to have, and the fact that you're doing so says a lot. And for what it's worth, your hair looks great. I don't know what it was like when it was long, but it looks great like this. I really think so. But it's really cool for me to hear this, especially in young women, because I think a lot of women, men as well, but a lot of women from a young age get kind of told what they can and cannot be, and more importantly, what they should and shouldn't be across a variety of spectrums, right? Like socially, professionally, dating-wise, da-da-da-da-da. And I think, very recently, it seems like you've kind of taken this into your own hands, which is really cool.
Yeah, I think actually, and the other major thing that changed is that I never played sports. Growing up, my whole life, I never played sports, and then because I'm very busty, and so that I was always self-conscious about that, when you're running and stuff.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I started to want to play sports. Actually, I met Jinher through the Reddit, like this Reddit group, Reddit meetup group.
So how she met Adele?
Yes. Yeah. So we met. That day we played frisbee, and then literally that day I was like, let's make a frisbee group, right? So I made like a WeChat frisbee group. We started promoting it. And then this thing just like took off like a rocket. Like everyone started to join and stuff. Now we have like more than 150 people join it, and they come and they're enthusiastic, and everyone wants to play, and we made like so many friends. Mind you, I've been here 3 months.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really important. Being here 3 months is important for you to make new friends, and I think sports is one of the best ways to do it.
Yeah. And now I want to play like every sport. Like I'm doing everything. I'm playing like basketball, I'm playing soccer, I'm playing badminton, and like all the things that I like thought, I'm not good enough, or I'm not gonna try it, especially as a girl, as you were saying. Like there's some expectations of that. But now I play with guys. I don't care. I'm just doing it. I'm not the best, but I'm like giving it my best shot,
I'm sure your best shot is great. But like I think the one point that you mentioned is so important in this, for the lack of a better word, let's call it transformation. Right? Transformation isn't something that happens overnight, and it's not something that happens, A to B. It is like A to Z, and it takes a long time. But it seems like you're at least starting it. Right? And I think one thing you said that's so important is when you were talking about how being busty made you feel it's okay. You used that word. I'm just repeating
well,
it.
Well, it's
right?
a fact. Okay,
Sure,
I can't change that.
I didn't state it.
It's not a bad
right?
thing, but
like you what you said was, if I remember correctly, that made you feel uncomfortable, and now you're kind of just like, you don't really care about that anymore. And I think that is the vital point, because I myself, not the busty part, but I myself have kind of gone through something similar to that, so I find it relatable, right? You get to a point in life where you kind of accept and grow comfortable with who you are, and then in addition, you're trying to build that, right? It's not like you accept it and you're just like, this is it. It's you accept it and then you go, where do I go from here? Right? And that kind of sounds like where you're at right now.
Yes, and I think the sky is the limit for me at this point. Great. You know what? Like what ended up happening? Like I wanted to rewrite the ending to 2020. Sure. I said I'm not gonna like remember.
It's a beautiful thing to say.
Yeah, I don't want it to be like, oh, that time that like COVID happened and I was depressed and then like my life was turned upside down, whatever. No, it was gonna be like, no, I regained my life back. You know, I regained my confidence back and my self-esteem back.
Right.
And now I'm like, you know, I've made like 100 connections. Yeah. Like it's amazing. It's when I tell people I've just got here and then, you know, I'm doing all these things, like look at me, I'm doing a podcast.
Sure, yeah.
What?
Yeah,
like,
welcome.
Yeah. So it's I think you're only as limited as your own thinking. As your own mindset.
Have you always thought that way, or is that mindset, as you put it, like a recent thing?
It's kind of recent, actually. Okay. I realized that I started reading these like books about habits, how to change habits and stuff.
The Charles Duhigg book, Power Habits,
Atomic Habits.
Okay, I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, it's so good. I recommend it. So just it's like everything is a habit that can be changed and altered.
Yes.
If you set up your environment in such a way and also make sure that your mentality is set in a certain way as well, right? But it's like, it's not just going off of motivation. It's actually like reconstructing your life to the point where you can get the outcome that you want. Yeah. And also I was inspired by the 4-hour work week. Such a huge like epiphany when I heard about like and read the book. I was like, oh my God, I want that life. Yeah. This is the life I want.
Yeah, Tim Ferriss's book really changed a lot of people.
Tim Ferriss is amazing.
Yeah, I think that book came out a while ago, right? I think it's been like 10 years.
Old, but I didn't know about it until recently.
It's amazing that it's still relevant to this day.
It's always relevant.
It's very relevant.
Timeless.
I think I read it. It's been a while since I've read it. I haven't picked up for a while. But the concept definitely sticks.
The concept is great.
Yeah. Seeing you go through this change is really cool to see. Before we went on air, you asked me, I think, like, what were my goals for doing this podcast? I think this is one of them. You know, I think if we have 0 listeners in Iraq right now. I'm pretty sure, right? But if we did, you know, if there is some like 15-year-old Iraqi girl that's listening right now or whatever, you know, here is a real... Mandaean Iraqi woman who is fresh to Shanghai, who has gone through some downs, and now she is trying to dig her way out of that hole and fucking enjoying it in the process. Like, I think this is why I want to do this podcast, and this is why I've enjoyed it. Yeah, and it's fucking beautiful.
And I think, I mean, I don't want to jinx myself, but like, I feel like this is the happiest I've ever been, and it was all my own doing. Like, I just made a decision to be happy.
Right. But then you gotta you gotta reinforce that decision, right?
Every day.
Yeah. And I think this is one thing a lot of people mistake, you know, not mistake, but like, don't really understand is you still have shit days.
Of course.
Yeah, I still have shit days like where like, I don't want to fucking do this podcast.
Yeah.
I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to go through my to-do list.
I didn't want to leave my bed this morning.
So you're still having these days. Yeah, but you just gotta fucking go through it, right? Like, and you gotta learn to enjoy that process, and that's shitty.
Yeah, I also, another book that I recommend is The Happiness Project. I don't know if
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it's this lady. She just has like an average, like, you know, life. She has work, she has family. But then she just decided to do something like every week to like just boost up her, happiness, like in her own, like she didn't have to go on a major trip or do something.
Right.
It's just like, how do I incorporate happiness into my daily existence?
This is not like some eat, pray, love bullshit, right? This is like the
no,
inverse of
because
that.
no, eat, pray, love is like, okay, you go somewhere, you're happy for a while, but then you come back to your real life, and it's like, what do you do, right? But like, why I like that book is because like, how do you incorporate it in your daily routine, in your daily life, right? I think that makes more sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I just got turned on to somebody called Jordan Peterson, who's a Canadian professor as well. I think he's a professor at UT, and
that's where I went to school.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Cool,
awesome. I went to SFU. So it's not quite on the same. Oh, SFU is getting up there from what I hear. But essentially, what Jordan said was, your life is dictated by these little things, as you said, like the 30 minutes you spend with your spouse for breakfast every day, then 10 minutes when you come home and your spouse, right? Like these, it's so easy for us to just be like, I'm tired this morning, I don't want to deal with you for breakfast, right? Or when you come home after a long day, whatever. But it's those like little moments and finding happiness in those that actually
agree more.
Make your life feel
fulfilling. I couldn't agree more. Honestly, like I try to do that when I'm at work.
Yeah.
So work is very tiring. I have a lot of students, but I when I go like during lunchtime to play with the kids, like some soccer or like whatever they're playing, I like try to like join them and stuff. Yeah. Or like just we have this like ancient house in a school that like we have a cafe there that they serve coffee. Right. So I would take like a cup and just sit out in the sun for a bit and just enjoy the weather.
Yeah, especially on days like today.
Just little things that you could do to just when you're feeling low, just to boost you up, or just talking to my students, like, in between classes and like getting to know them better. I don't know. I just try to find little pieces here and there to like make,
finding little pieces is important. I mean, it sounds like you're doing it and you're enjoying it, but I also think it's so easy to go the other way. Like it's so easy for people to spend that exact same amount of time on, say, Instagram, and just feel much worse about themselves after.
I just saw the Social Dilemma documentary.
Oh yeah,
I
haven't seen that yet.
Oh my gosh, you should totally watch it.
I will. I'm just trying to find the right time.
I was already. I by the way, I haven't had a VPN for like 2 months already.
Okay. Wow.
And the crazy thing is, I used to spend so much time on social media, especially YouTube, and I would justify it by saying, well, it's like educational. I'm learning like a lot from
it. Can be.
I mean, it totally is. However, it's like, at what point are you going to start implementing stuff? You're not just learning. You have to implement, right? Yeah. So I haven't had the VPN in 2 months. I don't miss it. I'm so busy, like being in the moment, living life, meeting people, talking to people in real life, that I even forgot about it completely. You know, it used to be something I used to spend so much time on, and now I can hardly think about it.
Yeah, dude, Rose, that's fucking impressive. I can't even forget like 2 months. I don't even think I can go 2 hours without VPN.
But WeChat is a huge thing, though. Like WeChat does take up some of my time because I'm part of so many groups.
Yeah, but that's a social thing, more or less, right? Like at least you know these people; they're within a certain community. Right. I would say. I can't go 2 hours without VPN here. Like, I think I'm terrible at this.
I didn't even, like, everybody was like, watching the news about the election and stuff, and I was just like, someone was gonna tell me. Like, I don't need to like know every second what's happening, all the updates. Like, when they have the results, everyone's gonna know it. And then sure enough, someone posted it, and then that's how I found out.
Yeah,
on the WeChat moments.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, I think once again, I'm Canadian, so I'm not even American, right? But I think I was checking the electoral votes the morning off, like every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And just like the live tweets about it, and it was very stressful.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. I used to be like obsessed with the news and watching all the time. And it was so stressful. I already have anxiety, like diagnosed with anxiety. And then,
I think I have it now too.
Yeah. So it was like amplifying my anxiety, And then it's like, why do we need to know everything that's going on everywhere all the time?
Right.
That is not how we're designed. Like as humans, we're not supposed to know and have that much input all the time. Yeah. It's very draining.
It is incredibly draining. The majority of people do not understand this. They do not even think about it. I think we're moving in the right direction. But I think what you just said, I'm going to push back a little bit on. I actually think we are designed for this, just not to this volume. Because I think back in the days, back when Mandaean religion was first found, right? Like back then, you had to soak in all the information because that's how your tribe survived, right? Like you had to soak in all the, like there wasn't a lot of information to soak in back then.
Well, that's
right?
the thing.
Yeah, so I think we actually are developed to constantly soak in information. It just, we are way past whatever point is healthy, like way past it.
Yeah, like
right?
It's just like with social media, like with Instagram, like you're used to like your mom telling you, "Oh, you look great today," or "You look like crap," right? But
Your
you're
mom
not.
tells you that?
Well,
Okay.
let's just say my mom is honest, okay?
Yeah.
But
If she
then,
saw you today, she would say you look great.
But if you're not designed to know what 1,000,000 people or 1,000
Right.
people
Sure.
like think about
Yeah,
you, and that's
absolutely
gonna
agree.
that's gonna fuck with you.
You know, I see this in young girls these days and young men, and it is fucking terrifying.
Yeah, the teenage suicide rate is going up.
Way up.
It's crazy.
Way up,
So I think, well, I wish I could like prevent my students from, like protect them from, going on there, because what ends up happening is like, the parents are, just giving them an iPad or
Right.
I mean, they have smartphones that
Yeah.
we never had access to that growing up, It's like,
So my last podcast, it was with my friend called Junia, and we talked about this a little bit. And what she said really hit me so profoundly. She said, our kids, or not kids, like the generation after us, they are the first generation where their primary source of information is from their phone. It's not from their parent. It's not from an uncle. It's not from a teacher. It's not from a coach, right? Like we grew up in a world where your primary source of information, at least until we were like 18, 19, was from your community, right? Like if your mom told me why the sky was blue, this is why the sky was blue. There was no Google to fact check that. So she said that the generation that comes after us, and like I have half sisters, I have one half sister who's 17, 18, and I have two more who are like 8 and 9 or 9 and 10. They cannot live without their phones for information purposes. Like I'm hanging out with a 10-year-old and we're talking about Frozen. Like we're watching Frozen because it's fucking Frozen, right? Frozen 2. And something happens in the movie. I forgot what it was. And I was just like, she asked me about it. I said, this is why it happens. It was something to do with like the nature and the surroundings. And then she just pulled out her phone and Googled it. And it turns out I was wrong. And I was like, holy fuck. This is like, how do you be a parent? Your kids are just going to whip out their phones all the time.
Yeah, it is a problem, but I think that, it's the parents' duty to protect their kids.
Parents aren't trained for this, right?
I mean, they're not trained for a lot of things, but there's no manual with kids. Like, kids don't come with a manual, so you have to try your best to like. But then if kids do what you do. Sure. Not what you say. Right. So if you're constantly on your phone and you're, not paying attention to them, then guess what? They're going to go on their phone too. Yeah. So
that's hard for parents to do. I mean, they're also addicted, man. Like I have friends now who are starting to have kids, and I don't know what it's going to be like. We'll see, I guess. Yeah. Do you want to have kids?
Ooh. That's one of those topics.
Okay. A simple no will suffice.
No, because it's kind of complicated. Okay. Some days I feel like, yeah, I could. And some days I'm like, no way. No. I mean, I really value my freedom so much. Right. I mean, it's probably my number one thing that I love about my life is that I can just go anywhere, anytime. You know what I mean? But sometimes I have this feeling, that's like, maybe I would like to have a child, Yeah. But who knows? Yeah, are the days where you have those feelings increasing, or are they? Because I think that's usually a good sign, right? Like if you're having more of those days, it's the same thing with everything. It depends on the day. Yeah, it's not like something that's like gradually increasing or decreasing. It's just like some days I'm like, yeah, maybe, and sometimes I'm like, no way. No, because I'm a teacher and I'm around kids all the time, and they're really it's a handful. It's like a lifetime commitment. Well, of course it is. That's literally what it is. I think having a kid is a lifetime commitment. Yeah. So that's why it's like you can't just make a snap decision about something. Like you have to really really want to do it and be committed to it and be ready for it financially, mentally, everything.
Yeah, time-wise, have the right partner maybe, right? Yeah.
Which I don't have the right partner.
That's good.
I don't have any partner at all.
That's what Tinder's for, right?
Oh my god, Tinder's the worst. I deleted my Tinder. I'm never using Tinder again.
I think Tinder is, in my opinion, like a mirror, right? Like it's
what?
You know how like what was it, Snow White, one of the Disney movies, you know, where like you ask the mirror for what you want and then the mirror shows it to you. I think that's what Tinder's for. No? Okay.
No
Maybe
way.
we have different Tinder experiences. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, from a male perspective, it's probably completely different.
Oh, for sure. But also, you know, we talked about this one of the last episodes as well. Like for me, I'm at a point dating wise where I'm very honest with what I want. You know, and like I think that helps.
What do you want?
You know, somebody tuck me in at night and make me breakfast in the morning. Is that too much?
Oh my god.
No,
you need a mother, you mean?
No, I miss my mom. I do not need a mother. Yeah, I make my own bed these days now. No, what I try to be honest with girls. Like I'm very similar to you with the kids thing. I'm probably leaning more towards not wanting to have kids, but I'm also just in a point right now where I'm very happy with what I'm doing, and I don't really want to add anybody into that mix who isn't complementing it. You know, like if you're gonna take away my energy, if you're gonna take away my time, it better be for a positive reason. Is kind of how I view it.
Yeah, it's you want someone who will add value to your life.
That's a good way of saying it.
Yeah. And I mean, they could be a valuable person, but they're not adding value to your life, you know. And I'm the same way. I feel like I'm good right now, but it's like if I could find someone that would enhance my life in some way, then I'm open to that. Yeah. But it shouldn't be forced. It should be like organic.
Yeah, I think most young people now who I meet who are around our age would kind of lean towards that. So it'll be interesting to see what we're like when we're in our late 30s and early 40s and see how many of us are still single. We'll see. I don't know. What's it like back home in Iraq? Like, are you still in touch with family there, or?
Actually, a lot of my dad's side is in Canada and the States, and my mom's side is all over the world, like Europe and Australia, America. So they're all over the place. So we don't really have any relatives in Iraq anymore.
Okay. So you're like fairly disconnected from the local populace there, I guess, or?
Probably I would not recognize the country if I visited, because it's actually it's gone through a tremendous transformation. Toward the more like religious extremism. But also like economic liberalism at the same time, which is very interesting.
Yeah, you know, maybe they just need a little more Mandaean people there. You should go back and influence that.
I'm good.
When was the last time you went back?
Never. Yeah, that's the sad part. Yeah. Because it was too dangerous at the time.
Right, of course. That makes sense.
Well, it still is now, I think. It's still unstable also.
I mean, but the entire region is still fairly difficult. Like, I really hope the day comes soon where you can spend some time there. And myself as well. Like, I would love to see Iraq, Iran, you know, parts of Afghanistan, the entire region.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a shame because, I mean, when you think about it, used to be the cradle of civilization.
Yeah.
Mesopotamia.
For a long time.
Like, it gave birth to science and math and philosophy and just like the major religions of the world.
Language,
everything. And then to see it like decimated like that, it's just heartbreaking. Even if you're not from there, it's a shame because so much of our human history stems from there, right? So
this is like a recent thing. I guess we should define recent. Like in my head, this is like what, a couple hundred years. Like when did that decline kind of happen? Post Persian Empire, or?
I would say after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 1600s, 1700s, somewhere around there. You don't know.
It's okay. Actually, probably after like the First World War.